So here's our worksheet 5.1. We're going to do all 1 through 14. Number 1, x is on the left side or the right side of the inequality? It's on the right. Okay, so we need to get that x by itself. I don't want this minus 15, so I do the opposite to get rid of it. The opposite of minus 15 is plus 15. And negative 15 plus 15 is 0. Okay, what we do to one side, we do to the other side. I want to go plus 15. Just like we would solve equations, which you do to one side, do to the other. Same thing with inequalities. Negative 8 plus 15, what do we get? 7. So we have 7 is greater than or equal to x. Now, this is the answer. However, I recommend you write the x on the left side and the 7 on the right side. So it's kind of like if you cut this whole thing out right off the paper and you switch it. You kind of lift it up and then flip it over, okay? And you'll end up with this. Now, if I did move the 7 to this side and the x to that side, this inequality has to remain true. What do I mean by remaining true? If it originally opened up to the 7, it has to continue opening up to the 7. So that's how you reassure yourself that you did it correctly. It's still going to open up to the 7. So what looked like a greater than, well, it is a greater than symbol here. It becomes a less than symbol, but nothing really changed. Right here it said that 7 is greater. Right here it still says that 7 is greater. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes, it does. Okay, so let's check out the multiple choice answers. This first part is all multiple choice. So we're looking for x is less than or equal to 7. Now the or equal to means solid dot. So all of these are solid dots. Less than is going to the left. So it's either B or C. And less than or equal to 7 has to be B. Okay? So this first one is B. Let's try number 2. You want to solve for x. If it were an equation, you would want to get x by itself on one side. Cameron, where's the x at? Is it on the left side of the inequality or the right side of the inequality? What do you say? It's on both. That's right. Now, you don't want it on both. So, Taylor, what do we do? If we don't want x on this side and x on this, you only want it on one side, what do you do? All right, let's get rid of one of them. You said subtract 4x. Excellent. That's what I would do. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. So what do we have left? We have a nice, beautiful positive 3. The inequality comes down. 5 take away 4 is 1. And you don't even have to put the 1. You can just put x. Notice that the inequality did not change because I did not multiply or divide by a negative. The only time you flip the inequality symbol, change the inequality symbol, is if you multiply or divide by a negative. Right here, we're subtracting 4x, right? 4x take away 4x is 0. Over here, we're subtracting 4x. 5x take away 4x is 1x. So the inequality does not change. Now, if I would have divided by a negative 4 and divided by a negative 4, yeah, then you would have to change the inequality. Okay, so anyways, we still have this correct answer, but the variable is on the right side, and I want it on the left side. So it's actually going to be x, 3 on this side, and the inequality also gets changed to greater than. So that's my final answer right there. X is greater than 3. Let's look at our multiple choice answers. Is this going to be an open dot or solid dot? Open. The only one with an open dot is D. So that's pretty obvious. It's going to be this guy down here. Now again, it's x is greater than 3. There's 3. It's an open dot. Greater than to the right. Or you could use the concept that, oh, the inequality is pointing this way. So it's going to go that way. Let's move on to a different one. Let's not do any more of these multiple choices. Let's try number 5 here. You want to solve this guy. Let's pretend it's an equation. Anytime you have a minus minus, you change it to plus plus. So we're really going to have r plus 5 is greater than negative 2. You want to solve for r. Eduardo, what would you do if you want to solve for r? That's right, you subtract 5. So let's go minus 5. 5 take away 5 is 0. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. What do we have left? We have r all by itself. That's what we wanted. Greater than. And if you owe, that's ugly, greater than. There we go. If you owe 2 and you owe 5, you're going to owe 7 altogether. So this is our answer. We don't need to flip anything because the r is on the left side. Notice that we didn't multiply or divide by a negative. So we're good. Is it going to be an open dot or solid dot? Open? So let's go to the -7 and let's put an open dot. Now, is this going to be going to the left or to the right? To the right. Now, let's read it. It says R is what compared to -7? Think about the hungry alligator or the hungry Pac-Man. It's trying to eat the R, so R is what? Greater. So it's to the right, okay? Or you could use the arrow concept. If your variable is on the left side, which way, if this were an arrow, see this inequality right here? It looks like an arrow telling you to go to the right. So that's exactly how you graph it, to the right. So it's up to you if you want to use the arrow concept, but if you do use the arrow concept, make sure that your variable is on the left side. Are you with me?
Yes.
You guys understand it?
Yes.
Now, a lot of us might freak out because of decimals. You know, first of all, you could use a calculator, so don't worry about that. Also, it's pretty easy. Like on number 7, plus 2.5 to get rid of the minus 2.5, plus 2.5. And again, you could use a calculator. You're going to have n greater than or equal to, you didn't multiply or divide by a negative, so you don't have to flip the inequality. If you owe $5 and you have $2.50, you could pay them the $2.50 and you're still going to owe $2.50. Now, what does that mean on the number line? Well, this is our answer right here. All you got to do is go to -2.5. So here's 0, here's -1, here's -2. What does -2.5 mean? Perfectly in between -3 and -2. 2.5. 2.5 is right here. Now, is it going to be a solid dot or an open dot right here? Solid dot, right? Solid dot. Now, why is it solid? Again, we wrote this on the board, or it's also on the previous video. If there's a solid line underneath the inequality, it's going to be a solid dot. If it just said n is greater than -2.5, then it would be an open dot. But since it says greater than or equal to, then it really is a solid dot. You're including that value. Okay, so greater than is to the right, which means that that solid dot, the arrow is going to the right. Let's try a different one. So check out number 10. You want to get C by itself. So what do you get rid of? The fraction. You could add 3/4 and add 3/4, but then you need a common denominator. If you don't want to deal with fractions, you could get rid of all fractions by multiplying everything by what? By 4, just like an equation. So are we going to be multiplying by a -4? No. We're just going to go by 4. The C times 4, the 3/4 times 4, everything by 4. So the inequality is not going to change. If I would have multiplied by -4, yeah, then the inequality would change. So the 4 over 2 is really 2, and 2 times 1 is 2 on the left side. You have your inequality right there. 4 times C is 4C, and over here the 4 and the 4 completely cancel, which means you have a -3 left over. So there's our new inequality. We temporarily got rid of the fractions. Now let's get C by itself on the right side. So I need to get rid of the -3 by doing +3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. I will have 5 is less than or equal to 4C. My final step would be to divide by 4, and you will have 5/4 is less than or equal to C. Let me write that down. 5/4 is less than or equal to C. So this answer would look better if the C were on the left side and the number were on the right. So I'm really going to just switch it and say C and put 5/4 on this side, which means that the inequality would also switch. If it originally opened up to the C, it has to continue to open up to the C. So there's my answer. Now, since we need to graph this answer, it's probably good to divide 5 by 4. 5 divided by 4 on a calculator, and you get 1.25. Or you could change it to a mixed number and say C is going to be greater than or equal to 1 1/4. So if you do it on a calculator, it'll be C is greater than or equal to 1.25, or C is greater than or equal to 1 1/4. So when we graph that on a number line, well, where's 1 1/4 at? Here's 0, here's 1, here's 2. So 1/4 of the way that would be like kind of chopping this up into 4 pieces. So let me actually show you that. So right here would be the halfway point. So if you want, you could even put the halfway point, and that would be the 1.5, right? But half of the half would be right here, which would be the 1/4. Okay? And over here, it would be 3/4. I know this might be a little confusing for some of us, but that's why I'm explaining it on video here. So if I were to actually chop it up into the 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, you get to the next whole value right there. So you have 1/4 here, 2/4, which really reduces down to half, 3/4 and 4/4. So 1 and 1/4 would be right here at that point. And that would be a solid dot or an open dot, according to our answer here. Solid. Okay. So we're going to put a solid dot at 1 and 1/4. And which way is this going? To the left or to the right? To the right. Why is that? Because it says greater than or equal to, which is to the right. Or you could think of the inequality arrow pointing to the right. We have some word problems down here. Let's just do one of them. Pick one. 11, 12, 13, or 14? 14. 8 plus 4 times a number is greater than... Okay, so let's start a piece at a time. 8 plus 4 times a number. What do I write? 4n or 4x, for whatever variable you want, is greater than. That means greater than symbol. 5 times the number. 5n. So here's our inequality, and we need to solve it. Okay? So again, you want to get n by itself on one side of the inequality, but it's on both sides. So let's get rid of one of them. I want to get rid of the 4n by subtracting 4n. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. I'm going to have 8. Inequality comes down the same. I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. 5 take away 4 is 1, and we're just talking about those n's, so I don't even need to write 1n. I could just leave it n. And here's my answer. 8 is greater than n, but I don't want to talk about 8. I want to talk about n. N is what compared to 8? Less than. Thank you very much. N is less than 8. And now we could actually graph it if they were asking us to graph it, but I don't think they ask us to. But if I wanted to graph it, you put 8 in the middle, bigger number on the right, smaller number on the left. It is going to be an open dot because it does not have a solid line underneath it. So it's going to be an open dot at 8, and it is going to the left because that is a less than symbol. N is less than 8. Less than's to the left, greater than's to the right. So let me spend the last couple of minutes here explaining set notation. On the back of your worksheet, you're going to see the answer n is less than 8, but they're going to write it in set notation. So it's those like weird looking brackets, and they put an n and they put a flat line like that, and then they write the answer n is less than 8. So don't freak out with this set notation. You just got to get used to it. Whoops. So if we go back to number 10, the set notation on that one would be C inside the weird looking brackets, a flat line like that, and then C is greater than or equal to 1 and 1/4, weird looking bracket. Okay, so that's a set notation. Don't freak out if you see it on the back. They don't give you the answer just like this. They don't give you the answer just n is greater than or equal to negative 2.5. They actually write it in set notation. N, weird looking bracket, line, n is greater than or equal to negative 2.5.